Good morning, Kentucky. We're back in the we're the windy city now. I don't know why, but um, welcome to our backyard. Our garden is starting to green up. We are still waiting for that last projected frost date. And I did get a comment from my last video that a young lady that was hour and a half, 2 hours from here she said, call me crazy, but I already got my garden put in. Well, good for her. I mean, that's great, but she's taking a big chance. So, um, if you want to put your garden in, don't say Bob told you, but um, I think you're better off to wait, make sure the ground's settled, everything is warm, everything is, so you don't risk everything you've got. But if she gets an early crop, fantastic, and we usually push it too. So, um, but today we're going to talk about um, whether you're starting a new garden, whether you're starting a big garden, or whether you're starting a grow bag or a box or whatever, is how many plants, what plants, and how many plants are you going to grow? I got a cheat sheet, and these are what we grow. And and the number one thing is, if you're going to grow it, you got to eat it. We took this garden thing seriously and said, we want to grow every vegetable we can grow that we like, store it for the winter, and eat it all winter. And we do that. We have 3 freezers. Um, we freeze a ton of stuff. We we uh, we can some, and but that's what we want to do. If you just want a casual garden where you go out and pick a tomato or pick a pepper or whatever, that's fine too. But if you really want to um, be self-sufficient, stay away from the grocery. Uh, I don't think we bought, other than fruit, we haven't bought a vegetable from the grocery store for the last couple of years. Maybe a head of lettuce every once in a while, but most of the time we grow our lettuce right through the winter in the greenhouse with very little heat. And as far as raspberries and strawberries and blueberries and you know they're like all you can get, and we've got a freezer full of them still. And you can only have so much blackberry cobbler, but um, it's a mindset. You have to decide, and especially if you're small, just starting, um, you want a variety. You want um, experiment a little bit. So um, on the list we got potatoes. Now potatoes they're easy to grow, but you got to depend on whether you want, because you can get, if you put a little plot of potatoes out, you'll have potatoes because a lot of them, a lot of vegetables make it weeks or months after you harvest. So it's just like a bag of potatoes you buy in the grocery. You just got them in there. Sometimes they'll grow because they're organic, but um, don't go nuts and grow a huge patch of potatoes, and then you're going to have, 100 pounds of potatoes to do something with. Uh, but potatoes are fun. They're great in a grow bag. You saw the ones in front of the greenhouse. And um, onions, we can't grow enough onions. And I know we've got over 100 onions in our garden right now. And at the end of the summer or whenever they're harvest time, we pull them up, hang them up, let them dry, and store them for the winter. If they start to go, then we chop them all up throw them in a freezer bag, throw them in the freezer. There's so many things you can do that with. Um, on the lighter side, radishes, you can grow them now, but they are a cool weather crop. They like the cool weather. They don't like 80 degrees, which is what our problem is right now. We're having 80-degree days. And cold crops don't like that because cauliflower, broccoli, kohlrabi, kale, all them, and radishes, snow peas, pak choi, it starts at 80s. They're bolting, and bolting is when flower. They're end of their life. They're going to grow up and they're going to put a flower out, put seeds out, and die. So it's, our bok choy, we already had to pull it, and it didn't get 3 inches high and already had flowers coming out of it. So, so you gotta watch. Now radishes, it's a sequence thing. You need to get on a every week basis while it's still cool, and if it's still cool in your area, put a dozen radishes in. A week later, put another dozen radishes in, and then a week later, until they don't work, and then you just pick them, and you'll always have radishes. But as soon as the summer hits, radishes don't work. Um, Snow peas, that's another one. It's a winter thing. So, not saying you can't grow them. You can grow them in the spring, or you can grow them in the fall. If you got cool weather in the spring, you got cool weather in the fall. So if you don't get a crop, we try to alternate ours and say, well, we're only going to grow something this in the spring, and then either another batch or something different in the fall. So you can do that too. Corn. Corn's fun. Depends on where you're at. Raccoons love it more than we do. So if you've seen any of my other videos, it's like, ooh, look at this corn. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, look at that corn. They just get in and ravage it. And so, we're going to split. We're going to try to put corn in the middle garden there where the potatoes are popping up. But I'm going to have to build a Fort Knox around it to keep them out of it. And then we're going to do popcorn, I think, up next to the greenhouse. But you gotta alternate them too, because they'll cross pollinate. So you gotta make sure one's tasseling and one's not. But with corn, you can't just grow a row of corn. It doesn't work. You gotta do a block. So if you're gonna do, even 10 corn or 10 plants, 10 seeds, you got to put them in a block. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because they pollinate themselves. The little tassels on top pollinate the little hairy things at the bottom, and it falls down and pollinates himself. Each one of them little strings that you hate when you peel your corn is an umbilical cord for the kernel, for each kernel. So if you put them in a long line, then the pollen just, the wind, especially here, the wind blows it and it's gone. So, corn's a little funny like that, but grow what you want to grow. If you want to just try corn, put it in a little square. And this is supposed to be fun, and it is really fun. Work sometimes, but it's fun. Green beans. There's 2 kinds of green beans. There's bush and climbing. Now we do climbing. I'll show you a pic. We do an arch, a cattle fence arch. Put green beans over top of it, and just absolutely gorgeous. And all you do is go up there and pick them right off. Bush beans on the ground like a bush. And a friend of mine, he put a huge garden in, but he would put 3 rows of 50-foot long green beans. He had more green beans than, another one of them was good for me, because he was like, Bob, I'm tired of picking green beans. Go pick some. So I pulled a giant bucket full. And So you got to think about what if you do good, if your plants don't have a good year, um, then you're happy with what you got. But you'll have some of them bumper crops that just like, what did I plant all these for? You go through that with zucchini and yellow squash and all that. You either got none, which we got none last year. We had no zucchini, no yellow squash. Um, the vine borers just got them before they ever even got going, and we tried everything to stop them. And so so you have to think about, and zucchini has changed its deal. I don't know if chefs did it or what, but they cut them real short. 6 inches long on a zucchini is edible now, and it's acceptable to pick them off at that age. And it all it does, it'll induce more zucchinis. But when I was younger, I mean, man, zucchinis were like huge, and so um, you got to watch the zucchinis. You can only give them away to so many people. Stick them in their mailboxes. It's too much ring doorbells and security to be uh, to be playing around sticking zucchinis in people's mailboxes. Um, so you got, but anything with squash, squash, you got them years where squash is just, like, what am I going to do with all these squashes? But we plant custard squash, yellow squash, zucchini squash, rampicot last year, um, acorn, butternut. But all those, other than the zucchini and the yellow squash, will winter over. They're winter squash. So, we stick them up in the closet in the dark, and we just ate a butternut squash that we had last summer, and still good. So, um, that's when you got to do your homework. You got to realize what you're planting, how many you're planting, and but like squashes, one or two plants is all we do. One or two zucchinis. We try to keep them the opposite sides of the garden, um, trying to keep the um, vine borers out of there. And if we get one, then that'll be plenty. Um, leeks, that's a European thing or a UK thing. They love leeks over there, and we watch a lot of videos from the UK. So, but they love leeks. We did okay with leeks last year, nothing, but they take a long time. So if you're going to just start, leeks wouldn't be the one. Celery, we did celery last year. We had too many. We ended up with like 6 or 7 celery. Grew it from seed. It's fun. Looks just like celery, and it doesn't get white and pretty. It's a lot greener. But we just chop it up in little chunks, put it in a freezer bag, and then use it in soups, or we can grind it up into a powder. There's a million things to do with it. Okra. Now, a lot of people in Kentucky love okra. I was never a fan, and I like them, but I like fried okra, but not one of my top 10. But you don't have to plant a whole row of okra. I'll show you a picture of our okra last year. We called it the redwood. I mean, it was this tall, and it just kept shooting off. And once they start shooting off okras, you just got to keep up, because one day you look at it and it'll be this big, and the next day you look at it this big, which is too big. So okra is one of them ones you got to watch, but it is fun though. Our asparagus is on a rest this year. It's coming up though, a lot better than we thought. Already got the asparagus beetle going at it yesterday. So I went around and picked them all off, and we're gonna have to do that every day until they're gone. And but they just devastated us last year, and I'm really surprised they come up, because the fern is what gives the energy to bring the other stalks up. So um, watermelon, cantaloupe. I'll show you a picture of what our garden looked like last year. We had watermelon and cantaloupe, and oh man, It was everywhere. And we didn't plant a whole lot. We probably planted, 3 or 4 plants. They were everywhere. And we got some decent watermelons and decent cantaloupes. And but that one you need area for. You just can't, plop it in the middle of your garden and expect it to. It'll take over. It just loves it. Pumpkins. Pumpkins are funny because you don't want a pumpkin until Halloween. Well, this is where your maturity date makes a difference, because you got to take whatever on your seed packet, back to that again, seed packet, look at what it says, 70, 80 days, 120 days, I'm not really sure right now, but you're going to take that from Halloween back and plant it then. Because if you plant it now, you're going to have, orange pumpkins in July or August, which doesn't do any good for Halloween. We also plant strawberries, a lot of strawberries. You can't plant too many strawberries, but they will take over. I had to rip this bed out last year because they just got so. If you go buy a strawberry, they're $5 a piece for a goofy strawberry. Let them grow, let them shoot their little runners out, take that little plant off the end, stick it in the ground. You'll have 50 in no time. I mean, 1 year and you'll have strawberries for life. So don't waste your time buying 25 strawberries at Lowe's for $5 a piece. Blackberries, one little blackberry bush or plant, you can buy them cheap at, farm store or, Lowe's or Walmart or whatever. Just make sure it's got green on it before you buy it. But they'll turn into big plants, and they'll supply and they'll pop up. Raspberries are terrible for that. I had to make a metal guardrail to keep the raspberries from coming up in the middle of the lawn. They just go underground, and then you got another raspberry out in the middle of the lawn. So, and we do herbs. We do dill because we love pickles, and I totally missed the cucumbers. We do cucumbers also, but you don't need to plant a lot of cucumbers either. Now last year in that little kid's garden, the 2x4 garden, I got 40 cucumbers off of that. Well, you can only make so many pickles. You can only eat so many pickles. And my refrigerator is still full of pickles from last year, and they still taste okay. So, but you can only eat so many. So think about that. And you hate wasting food. It's too expensive to waste it. We got turnips. If you don't like turnips, don't grow them. I never did until we grew them. Now I like them. So, we plant, 20 turnips, and then kind of like the radish thing, you rotate them, every week you plant a few more and plant a few more. Carrots, same way. We got 3 different batches of carrots going right now, and all in different time sequences. So, but they're tough to germinate, they're slow, and all of a sudden you'll have carrots. But my wife's trick, you take your carrot after you, and just cut the green part off. Don't wash them. Put them in a paper towel. Roll them all up single. Put them in a plastic bag. Put them in the crisper. They'll last forever. And she's making soup or whatever. She'll pull one of them carrots out, unwrap it, wash it, chop it up. Fine. Tomatoes. Tomatoes is a major one for everybody. And really tomatoes and peppers. And if you got a small garden, you want to put a couple tomatoes in it. Get different ones. Don't get the same. I went through that in the last video. Always get a cherry tomato because they're the sweetest and they taste the best. and they're just so fun to walk by as a snack. My grandson, you can't have a cherry tomato on him. He'll have it eaten in no time. And then, there's a million tomatoes nowadays. I mean, we've got some really odd ones. Opaca, and we got Abe Lincoln's, and we got Alice's Dream, and then we got Roma's, and then we got it's a Amish paste tomato. But we put in, 35 tomato plants. But we put every single one. If we don't eat it, we freeze it. So, and that's so easy. You take your tomatoes, get boiling water, take your tomatoes, throw them in there, cook them for a couple minutes until the skin starts to wrinkle and break up, and then you take them out, put them in cold water, peel the skin off, throw them in a freezer bag, throw them in the freezer. We put up at least 100 tomato bags every summer, and we're still eating it. So I mean, tomatoes are phenomenal for that. Peppers, we do the same thing. We take them, eat what we can, and what we don't. You can't peel them, but you just chop them up, throw them in a bag, and then you use them all winter. Sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are fun. They usually go in this little box over here. And last year, I'll show you a picture of what they did. We did purple. So we went to Hawaii and found how cool purple sweet potatoes were. So we thought we'd plant them behind the greenhouse. And, they did everything but engulf the greenhouse. And yeah, they travel. So if you got to have room to plant a purple sweet potato, or you have to keep it all trimmed back, which kind of defeating the purpose. But they're delicious. They last. Purple ones don't last as long as regular orange ones. So, you got to eat them first. The orange ones can sit on the shelf like a potato. And fruit. We got apples, peaches, cherries, pear, fig, rhubarb, and I think it's a gooseberry, I think. And, we're not doing great at fruit. It's tough. Our pears and peaches had beautiful blossoms on it, and then the 80-mile-an-hour wind blew them all off. So we still got some in there. So we're going to see. It's an ongoing process, I guess. Another one is rhubarb. Rhubarb stays in the ground, so it comes up every year, and ours comes up. But it's another one of them that, if you love rhubarb, my wife makes a pineapple rhubarb crumble thing. Oh my God, is it good? And but they want to bolt as soon as it gets hot. I mean, they're putting this big old bud up, and you have to break it off. If we hadn't broke off 20 flowers off of these 2 plants so far, because this weather is just, we're not supposed to be having 80s degrees right now. So, like I said, unpredictable, but you can't do anything about it. Just kind of roll with the punches but kind of get in your mind what you want to plant before you plant it. Say, I want a couple tomatoes, a couple peppers, maybe a zucchini or 2, and squash or 2, and you can put them in a small area. I mean, a friend of mine, he had 2 of them metal raised beds, and he asked me to lay it out, so I laid it out. He had tomatoes and onions and radishes and green peppers, and but it filled out real nice. And so you just kind of have to lay that out and go, well, this is what I can do this year. And then you'll do like me, and you build another box, and then you go, well, that worked pretty good. I'll build another box. And so still building boxes. And so get in your mind what you want as a garden. Do you want to supply your family? You know, I don't know if you have 5 kids or no kids. I mean, we do all this for us, and we eat. You know, we're not vegetarians, but we eat a lot of vegetables. And it's a lot healthier for you. It's a lot no chemicals, so you know you're not eating that junk that's in everything else, and you know what's going into your body. So because it came right out of your soil, out of your garden, and so um, we got baby birds up in our birdhouses today, and so uh, write a list down what you want to plant. You know, make this a family thing. You know, if the kids like pickles, then you're gonna have to do cucumbers. If the kids like, you know, tomatoes, or you know, now we do hot peppers, which that's my thing. You know, I love hot peppers, and we're doing jalapenos, yellow banana peppers, uh, habaneros, and something else, chilies. And you know, I love the hot stuff. So, um, but you don't want to plant. You know, you plant one plant. That's all you need, because if it grows good, you're gonna have. My wife complains I got a freezer full of peppers, but you know, get in the mood, you eat them. But so write your list. Um, put next to it, you know, how many. Think about what the final plan is, and just picture it and go, well, this is going to have 10 tomatoes on it. Well, one thing I'm going to have to mention about tomatoes. Okay, there's 2 kinds of tomato. There are 2 types of tomatoes. There is determinate and indeterminate. Now, determinate, it's funny, for years we never knew this. And all of a sudden you have a tomato, and it's growing, and it gets about 2 feet tall, and it's filled up the tomato cage, which I hate, but filled up the tomato cage, and it produced 10 tomatoes, and then just never produced again. It never flowers, it never does nothing. It's like, you know, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? That's a determinate tomato. Romas are Romas are determinate. There's a lot, not a whole lot of determinants, but they are made so when you look on the pack, see if it's determinate or indeterminate. Determinate, I always said, God determines how tall it's going to get, how many tomatoes it's going to get, and it's done. Indeterminate will go until the frost breaks it down and kills it, because that's what the towers are for. Because a tomato grow, we had a tomato in front of the greenhouse, and I had it on a pole, like the new structure, and went up 8 feet, and back down to the ground, and then back up. So, you know, we had 16, 18 feet, 8, 16, 17, 24 foot. And if I was on a long pole, it would be way up there. But, and they will just keep producing. Cherry is outrageous that way. So determinate, indeterminate. And so you want, you know, if you got a nice little pot you want to put a plant in, don't put it indeterminate, because it's going to keep growing to the ceiling. So on that note, hopefully I helped you at least sit and think about, you know, what you want and how many you want. And, you know, there's always horror stories about, you know, I planted this much and it just either didn't get any or got so much they didn't know what to do with it all. So just want to make this nice and easy, and make it enjoyable for you and your family. So, all right, from then we'll talk to you later. Later.